What's going on, everybody? Evan here with Evan's Detailing and Polishing. That's Levi back there. You don't mind him, he's just doing his thing, polishing some lips. I was really hoping to be doing a video on how to sand and polish this drive shaft for you guys, so you guys can learn how to sand it. But actually this one here, now that I got it cleaned up, really isn't all that bad. So what I'm actually going to do is, instead of sanding, which as I've said a million times takes a ton of time, these aluminum drive shafts are really soft. So what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to cut it with a red buff with a brown compound first, and then I'm going to follow it up by a yellow and brown, followed by a white and green. So I'm going to just make this a more in-depth video on how you can skip sanding. For those of you that are watching this video, I do want to tell you, if you go to cut and it instantly turns black, you have to sand. There's no shortcut around it. You will cut and you will waste your time cutting. That's how you know you need to sand. If you start cutting and it turns instantly black, the only way you're going to get any results is if you sand. Can you still make it gray shiny? Absolutely, you can definitely do that. But make this one a little more in-depth video. I did a little test spot. I cut a chunk here. I don't know if you guys can see this on the video, but it already looks phenomenal. So I'm just going to cut this in smaller sections so that my rouge doesn't dry out on me. And then I'm going to cut as much of it as I can. And then, like I said, I'm going to switch over to the yellow and brown and then finish it up with a white and green. So just kind of pay attention to the process a little more in depth. I'm going to zoom you in here on just the drive shaft so that you can see just that working. You don't need to see me. You guys are sick of seeing me already. But I'm just going to zoom this in so you guys can actually watch the buff doing its thing. So here we go. I'm going to zoom you in. You see here right about there. And here we go. Hey Levi, can you throw a brand new yellow on a buffer for me? Preferably that one that doesn't have any buffs on it. Thank you. Let's bring you around to the other side here. There we go. Now, I can already hear some of you guys talking in the chat, and I haven't even posted this video yet. I would be willing to bet somebody has already asked, why are you using a red buff on aluminum? I thought red buffs were for stainless. You just set it on that side for now. Thank you. Why are you using a red buff on aluminum when this is aluminum? I thought red buffs were for stainless. Honestly, the color of the buff does not matter. The color of the buff just tells most companies the difference in their stiffnesses and the difference in their treatment. I've said this in the buff video. If you haven't watched that, go back and watch that buff video. I will be redoing that buff video because it's outdated and the audio really wasn't all that great. But at the end of the day, you can use any color on anything. Just red cuts harder, and red's going to leave a lot stronger hash mark. Yellow, of course, is going to leave a softer hash mark because it's a softer buff. Even though you're using the same compound, it's just going to go less. So, like I said, I'm trying to avoid sanding this thing, but the red buff is going to take easily half as much time as sanding it would. So I'm going to use the red buff. I'm just going to make sure I keep moving, because if I sit in one spot, I could probably cut through it with the red buff. It's super stiff. But yeah, we do use red and brown from time to time to cut down on sanding. So I'm going to keep cutting this side so we can switch over to the yellow and brown. But I just wanted to answer that question before we got too far. right, so now most of you already know that I'm not a huge believer in having to sand everything. I honestly avoid sanding as much as possible, and especially when it isn't necessary. Now this drive shaft, I could have sanded it and polished it. Honestly, I really don't think that this thing would have turned out that much nicer sanding it than the process I'm doing right now. So if it was a little rougher than this, yes, I would have had to have sanded it to get it this nice. But as of right now, I can be honest with you, looking at it, just looking at where it's at right now, I'm not 100% sure sanding this thing would have made it any better. Would it have brought a little bit of gloss? Yes, but you're also taking away some of the structural integrity of it. You're taking away some of the material. And honestly, this thing's gonna look great. You shove it up underneath a lifted truck, a pickup truck, and it's gonna look great. So let me bring you in a little closer again. And zoom you in on the drive shaft here. And now I'm gonna go end to end with the yellow and brown, same exact brown, no change. All right, it's already starting to look really good. I'm gonna switch over to the white and green here and finish this side up and then flip it over and do the last little bit of the top. But is really coming out nicely. And this is without even sanding it. And when the customer dropped it off, a little piece of advice for you guys that are polishers. When the customer dropped it off, I had assumed I was going to need to sand it. I could have done a test spot while he was there and checked it and seen that I didn't need to. But I quoted it high. One, because I hate bidding low, because I don't want to get the job because I was cheap. I want to get the job because I was going to get it done right. So I bid it out high in case I was going to have to sand it. And now that I don't have to sand it, I just saved this guy 50 bucks. So now I'm going to do it. This thing's going to look great. He's going to be happy with it on his truck. And it's going to be 50 bucks cheaper than he thought. He's going to be ecstatic because it was 50 bucks cheaper. And if I had come in 50 bucks over, there'd have been some questions, right? So I try to avoid that as much as I can. So little piece of advice for you guys. When you're looking at something, always try to bid it high or where you think you're going to still be comfortable to make money. So here we go, white wheel, green. So there you have it. Let me zoom in one more time, see if you can see it. The drive shaft looks amazing. This camera never really makes it look as good as it does in person because this thing has a perfect reflection in it right now. I know you can't see that on the camera, but that's simply it. So just understand you don't always need to sand. Sand when necessary, but if you're looking to stay profitable and looking to stay making money, you don't always have to sand to get it looking right. So this was red buff and brown compound, followed by a yellow and a brown compound, just to kind of even everything out. And then we followed it up with the white and the green, no hand polish, no nothing. I'm gonna flip this thing over and do the same thing on the other side. So thank you guys for joining me. But I'm gonna get this thing wrapped up and out of here so that the customer can come pick it up. See you on the next one.